As the events shaping the polity continue to drop in rapid fashion, we will always be here to help you catch up on all those news bits. Now, today on the program, CCT issues bench warrant against Onoge, orders his arrest. President Buhari, Atiku and others sign second National Peace Accord. Independent National Electoral Commission confirms that 4,695 smart card readers burnt in Anambra Inferno. And later on the show, US denies backing the PDP Atiku for presidential elections as federal government accuses opposition of plotting anarchy during the polls. I'll be hanging out with Emeka Madunagu and Asuko James. I'm Sulaiman Alede. Journalist Hangout starts now. It appears that the suspended Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onoge, tried to get out of this legal quagmire, the more his adversaries tightened the noose around his neck. And the resumption of his trial over false assets declaration at the Code of Conduct Tribunal, CCT in Abuja earlier today, prosecution counsel called for his presence in court to take his plea. The CCT granted the order and issued a bench warrant for the Inspector General of Police and the Department of State Service, the DSS, to arrest and bring Justice Onoge before it on Friday for trial. Now, gentlemen, as that broke, another story broke, and that is from the NJC constituting a five-man panel to also look at the issues surrounding the suspended CJN. How do you see all of this? Let's start with you, Emeka.
Yeah, I think I had said it all the time. Even though some people were arguing that it was a criminal, trying to criminalize the entire matter. But I said, this to me was more of an administrative infraction. Now that it was within the ambit of the NJC, National Judicial Council, to deal with the matter. But of course, you saw the political coloration it took. The statements by the political parties, by the leading political parties, now show that there was more to it. And even the hasty action of the president, the illegal action, unconstitutional action of the president in suspending the CJN in total gross violation of the principle of separation of powers. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
So we can't run away from that.
No, with all the arguments. Now you see, we are back to the NJC, which some of us had counseled that you see, in dealing with things like this, we have to be very, very careful because you don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. You have to be careful because the image of the nation, the sanctity of the judiciary is at stake. You cannot say because, okay, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Onoge, allegedly committed an infraction, then you bring down the entire judiciary and then you trample on the Constitution. I said it on this table that it is Onoge today. Nobody knows tomorrow who it might be. And then people will be providing rationalization for such illegal actions. We must condemn illegality in its totality. So like I said, now the NJC has set up a five-man panel to look into the matter. So I wonder the haste with which the CCT is proceeding. The CCT will definitely have to stand down action to allow the NJC, because the interesting thing is this. A citizen submitted a petition to the CCB, and in record time, the CCB investigated it and proceeded to the Code of Conduct Tribunal. Interesting. But again, you now find out that the EFCC, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, now filed a petition with the NJC. And these are the same people who are arguing that no, it is not within the ambit of the NJC. So what it means is that you're trying to approbate and reprobate at the same time. How is it possible? So you are now subjecting one man to double jeopardy.
And again, I think, let me bring Asuko here, because there's another aspect, another angle. A lot of people are saying this, because as Emeka rightly observed, now it will seem as if it's gone back to the NJC.
Which it should have gone to in the first place.
But again, is it any kind of coincidence that we're getting to see that everything is moving on the same date? I'm talking about when it's adjourned, it moves adjournment, same date. NJC is sitting on the matter. You get to see CCT also sitting on the same matter. Now, when they moved from Monday to Wednesday, both did the same thing. And on Wednesday, we have two information surrounding the same personality. How do you keep track of this, being the editor on the desk?
It's always very funny, you know, and very interesting, because if the NJC is like one is actually looking at one, you know, if you make your move, I make my move. And the moves are always, you know, together. The CCT actually, you know, fixed theirs for 13th, and the NJC, when they met, they said it has to be on the 13th.
They love the 13th.
No,
Yes,
I think initially it was on the 12th.
12th.
Then
Then
that's the NJC.
NJC now moved to 13th.
Yes.
You know, so it's like a tactical move, you know, because the CCT is more of the executive, you know.
It's an executive
body. Yes. And then the NJC is the judiciary, you know. And just like Emeka said, you know, from ab initio, they would have, you know, gone straight to the NJC. But I think the fear was that since the person, in quotes, the accused, you know, was going to also sit on the NJC's bench, you know, when they want to decide the case, which is Onoe, you know, perhaps that is why the president didn't want to go that route, and he decided to go his own route, you know, which is, to me, is unconstitutional,
yes,
which everybody has condemned.
Which is totally unconstitutional.
So for now, the NJC has set up this panel, and what we want to see is we want to see a fair judgment, because Tanko is not there, Onoge is not there. We now have a new man there, so the five-man panel will be able to come up with something substantial whereby everybody will definitely agree with. And so let's just wait and see how it's going to pan out at the end.
No, but I'm sorry.
Because I'm trying for us to look at this.
Okay.
Sorry to cut you there. I'm
Yes.
trying to, so that we can look at the release from the NJC. Well, if you look at the paragraph, they said, well, after, you know, the emergency meeting, that the NJC accepted the result of the preliminary assessment of the petitions against Walter Onoge, GCON, and Honorable Mr. Justice Muhammad, CFR, that the petitions were worthy of further investigation and should not be terminated under Rule 17 of the Judicial Discipline Regulations of the Council. It comes back to what you highlighted. Now we're coming back to the very first point where you said the nation, that the executive arm should have actually approached the NJC to deal with this. Now, are you excited, or are you happy looking at the way and manner the NJC is going about this, not minding what kind of flaws we have seen from the executive arm of government?
You see, that's the painful thing about how the law operates. You know, you must allow, the wheel of justice grinds slowly. But you see, you cannot now become like, was it Napoleon who said, I'm the state, and the state is me. That would be a total aberration. Well, so now, this matter, from the beginning, was taken as a criminal matter by the executive, as if there was a predetermined position it desired to arrive at. And we are saying, no, you must still respect the principle of separation of powers. Why? Because you see, the NJC ought to sit. It's like the disciplinary panel for the judiciary, you know, and this has to do with, you're talking about conduct. So if you're accusing the Chief Justice of Nigeria of misconduct, even if it's gross misconduct, you must follow the due procedure. You must follow the due process, because the very law people have been quoting has a proviso that if a public officer is taken up on certain loopholes in his or her asset declaration, and that the person admits and corrects it, you understand, the matter shall not, which is a clear fact in law. So now, but you went ahead in spite of that provision and took the matter to the CCT. Now we have arrived at a very dangerous point of double jeopardy. You are subjecting one person to the CCT and to the NJC. So which one is it going? Which one is going to give way for the other? And the interesting thing is that the same executive went to the CCT, the same executive, through the EFCC, sent a petition to the NJC. So that's what I'm talking about, probating and reprobating. Where do you actually stand? If you had come to a realization, you had come to the point of realization that the NJC ought to handle this matter, I think the best thing, the honorable thing should have been withdraw the matter from the CCT. Withdraw the matter from the CCT and let the NJC...
And allow the NJC...
Yeah, let the NJC
along
deal
with
with
it.
it exhaustively. Perhaps, you see, where something that might give, that might lend weight to what you talked about, earlier. Something you talked about earlier was where Justice Onogen, adjourned the deliberations of the NJC indefinitely. So, which in a way created a kind of difficult situation, which the president felt he could remedy by suspending him. But you see, two wrongs can never make a right, because in law, you don't put nothing on nothing.
I'm still with the NJC on this, and it will seem as if truly the NJC has the powers to deal with issues like this. And as my producers rightly said, they made it look the way a lot of people will better understand it, that it's almost like a flurry of petitions coming towards Justice Onogen. And right in the release from the NJC, that's another quote there, a new petition against Honorable Justice Mohammed, this time Justice Mohammed, by the Action People's Party was referred to Honorable Mr. Justice for his comments within an abridged 7 days. So the two gentlemen, they've been having one petition or the other, and the NJC is actually dealing with everything, looking at everything, because there's always been this complaint against the NJC that a lot of people have
been
piles
sending
of petitions,
and they won't even
gathering
attend
dust
to it.
there. So what do you think now that you're seeing that they're looking at almost every issue, bit by bit as they come?
No, it is at least now that Nigerians now know that the NJC is really working, unlike because they were complaining, just like you said, of so many petitions lying in NJC's cupboard and is already gathering dust, But now that they are attending to this that concerns the Chief Justice of Nigeria, either the one that is being enthroned or not.
As well as Justice Mohammed.
Or not, it shows that they are working, that we now have an NJC. So, but Nigerians will want to see an NJC that is not just
lamed up,
exactly,
just
laid back.
I align with that.
Without going ahead to to hit, they use the big stick where necessary.
Where necessary.
Because right now,
I align with that.
Everybody is now looking at this petition. Petitions will keep coming, either to distract the NJC or to distract the politics.
This is Nigeria.
But this, just like
this is Nigeria. Petitions keep flying.
When once it comes to the judiciary, like I know the last time I think was on Monday that I came here, the judiciary is the last hope of the common man. Yeah. So if anything, affects the judiciary, then there's no hope for the common man. So the NJC should look at these petitions critically and make sure that they come out with something that will not dent the image of the judiciary. I'm not saying if any of the two parties or the two parties are found culpable, they should not be dealt with. But Nigerians will want to look at what the resolutions will be, what the recommendations will be, so that they'll be able to know that, okay, finally, the judiciary is either cleaned or is cleaned up of any infraction whatsoever. Because I'm concerned about what the judiciary, forget about what the executive arm as well as the legislative arm of government, is about. But the judiciary is more important. Because whatever affects the judiciary,
absolutely,
we are in serious trouble.
I want to take off.
So NJC has to come out with something very, very concrete.
Let me take something off you and bring it to Emeka. He said something about the flurry of petitions, and he said, well, he's hoping that the NJC will not be distracted by, the series of petitions that they receive. Do you think, as it is now, that the NJC has the, the staying power to maintain its calm and, due process, following its rules, to look at all the petitions coming in, week out? It's almost as if every time they sit, they see a new petition. But this time from a political party, Action People's Party against Justice Mohammed.
Yeah, why not? I mean, the NJC has existed for many years, so the consideration of petitions is not a new thing to them. All kinds of petitions have come up before them. I mean, I remember the other time I was here where we're talking about, You know, how some people were trying to link it to the case of Justice Salami,
Okay.
Issa Salami, and Babajide, you know, clearly stated that there was no link whatsoever. So, but the issue is this, like my colleague Asuko has said, the NJC must do justice to the matter, to all the petitions, no matter number of petitions. But again, we must also ask ourselves as a nation, how we want to proceed. Because you find out that it appears petition writing at times, you know, particularly in political seasons, you know, assumes a life of his own. So all kinds of allegations. I mean, for instance, look at the issue of the $16 billion power, you know, power probe, which President Buhari referred to some days ago, which has been clearly stated, as we discussed on this table, that there is nothing like that. But of course, if you remember that there was a governor, a former governor, who made some allegations and never appeared to defend those claims.
Yeah, exactly.
Never appeared to defend those claims. So you find out all kinds of petitions, people writing petitions, claiming this wants to do this, that wants to do this. Of course, this is the season of politics. You know, by the time the elections go away and then we settle down to normal life again, then another set of activities will roll in. But basically, the NJC, like my colleague said, you know, has a golden opportunity, you know, to give Nigerians that, you know, to restore the confidence of Nigerians in the judiciary. Because definitely any allegation of infraction against the Chief Justice of Nigeria is not, you know, a laughing matter.
Well, an arduous task there for the NJC. But and again, you just reminded us that these are political times. Now, so it's just 3 days to the first set of ballots to be cast in this year's general election in Nigeria. In the wake of tensions heralded in the polls, there is need for key players in the process to make peace with the broken pieces to ensure a credible outcome. Now, the presidential candidates of various political parties have signed another peace accord to commit themselves to peaceful elections. President Muhammadu Buhari of the All Progressives Congress, the APC, and his main rival in the polls, Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, were present to append their signatures at an event brokered by the Abdul Salami Abubakar-led National Committee for Peace. Gentlemen, the era of peace, the era where a lot of slogans, you get to hear them: vote, don't fight, move on. And this is the second one, just 3 days to the elections. Do you think that the first wasn't, you know, resounding enough, or we just needed to refresh this?
No, I think, just like you said, they wanted to refresh it because, you know, the first one started before campaigns.
So it must have expired.
So it would have
Not
expired during the soapbox, you know, where people were out of the heat.
Yeah, emotions.
You know, emotions would have run high. You know, people trying to tell, you know, canvass for votes and all that. So speeches would have, you know, heightened tension one way or the other. You know, so, and it's good that the National Peace Committee is coming up again and saying, from what they are seeing, it is better we call these two gladiators, these gladiators to come and sign another peace accord. That when once you know that you didn't win this election, you should be able to call your supporters and tell them Nigeria has to be peaceful because we are the owners of this country, you know. And it is very, very expedient at this point in time that this accord is signed. And I know that there are some states that also signed peace accord, you know, even though most political parties won't attend, but all the states in the federation should be able to sign the peace accord, whether you like the person, the man sitting there now, or you don't. There should be assurances by every candidate that once they lose their seats, they should vacate. They shouldn't begin to incite people to go into violence. You know, it's just like we used to say, when you are in the church and your pastor says, don't vote this particular person, because you hold that big influence, majority of people, then let me not say all. But majority of people, especially those who are not too learned enough to ask questions, will want to follow you. You know, and that is how our politicians of today hold that kind of influence. This peace accord is very, very necessary at this point in time.
Well, anyway, I think it happens across religions, and that is why a lot of people still say whether it's the Friday khutbah, which is a sermon, you must not, incite your congregation. So if it's the Sunday service, as Asuka also rightly said, you mustn't. But I'm trying to look at it in another, angle, and it has to do with intra-party violence. And a case off the top of my head, I'm still trying to look at what that ugly scenario that played out in Ogun State. And
Monday.
Yes, because if they're signing this, what about those within their political parties that have decided to unleash violence among themselves? How do you hold them to account with Ogun State in the picture?
No, of course, the same, something similar to that happened in Imo State. Of course, between supporters
they
of
were
Action
more matured.
Alliance and APC.
But they were more matured.
They didn't get to the point of throwing stones.
So the emo crowd was more mature.
Yes.
Well, maybe
maybe
there wasn't.
That's what Asuka just said.
Maybe
And
it
I
wasn't.
think
Maybe
it looks like
emotions
I'm
were
going
not
with him.
so strong, as to motivate the throwing of stones. But basically, I believe that, and I say this with all sense of responsibility, that we cannot wish away some of these things because our democracy is still evolving. Unfortunately, okay, fine, we got independence in 1960, and unfortunately it was truncated in 1966 with the coup. And then between then and 1979, you saw it was the military, then the military came again in 1983, and even though we had a military democracy, along the line from Babangida bought off in 1992, but and then we came back to democracy in 1999. So you see, that democratic element, has not been fully ingrained in us as Nigerians. So you still find that, that idea that is like we're still under military rule. You see the leaders, want to rule by fiat, by military fiat. They want to decree things into existence. They don't want to follow the law. Even the citizens too. Of course, there's a tendency for the citizens to also want to be like their leaders.
Is 20 years not a long enough time for us to have actually removed that kind of attitude? Because, for instance, we've heard cases of maybe a police commissioner. It's been a tradition in Nigerian politics that going to an election, they move some of the commissioner of police so that you bring a new one. And we've had cases where some governors have refused, blatantly refused the coming of a new commissioner of police.
No, for me, you see, I'm not trying to say that violence should be a part of the learning process. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is this, that you see the tendency for politicians, for Nigerian politicians, to still behave as if we're in the military era, will wear off over time. But the issue, in terms also the issue of violence, there's that carryover from the military era. When the military, jackboot them, that jackboot rule, the military felt, he had every right to trample on the citizens. And then there is that unfortunate carryover from that period. Now, it gets to a point that the people also start fighting each other. But you see, the major gladiators, those who seek our votes to be our leaders, should also respect us, should respect our rights to life, our right to freedom of speech, freedom of association. They should respect these rights. And you see, it is very, very clear that some of these leaders too indirectly encourage their followers who have been making these incendiary remarks. Look at what happened with the governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, threatening election observers, and then Garba Shehu coming to say it was in national interest. I think that was really, really distasteful. That left a very bad taste. It's hard taste in the mouth because there was no need for it. You see, this desperation for power, it will end one day. All these things have time limits. So no matter if you kill 1 million people, one day you will be called to account. And if people think, if they ever have it at the back of their minds that there will be a day of reckoning for all these things, they will, they will be more cautious, they will be more circumspect in the way they speak, in the public comments they make. You cannot now try to start coloring what you said. I know even the national chairman of the PDP, which is Secondo, said if the PDP is rigged, if the election is rigged, there will be violence. All of those things are not necessary. We need to play politics where, we look at the larger picture, and that is the advancement of the nation, the advancement of the society.
Let me come to Asuku, and what I've taken from Emeka here is, punishing anyone who's done such. And we haven't been able to do that over the years. We've seen a few states, Kogi complaints in Kogi State, back and forth among the people, some candidates, and we've heard what has happened in a couple of other states. How do you think, going forward, we can actually make such peace accord? We can hold people to account, because it would seem as if sometimes it's just a mere ceremony, for television, for the cameras, and once the lights are out, they still incite their followers.
I think the peace accord should, entail not only the gladiators, because I've noticed that it is not the gladiators that are always running their mouth. Because if you notice, if you go check all the major speeches of this, the articles, Buhari and co, you will find out that they are even more civil than the people outside. The people around them, coming to abuse, to try and incite people and why this and that, Even though they always marshal, because we keep saying it, go ahead and tell Nigerians why we should vote for you.
Yeah, what you want to do.
What you want to do and how you will do it. There is no point inciting people and telling people, if you don't vote for me, this will happen. Or we will do this. Those are things that any gullible person can easily, that's your action, that's your last few words that some gullible people will grab. And then from there, it turns into violence. And from violence, it becomes what we can't, manage. And those are the people that I feel the National Peace Committee should also include in whatever documents that these gladiators will be signing, and saying that anybody that is around you that alters speeches that will, envelope, make sure that everybody turns the country into violence or throw the country into violence, that person will be held responsible and will be prosecuted. And then if you are going to bring the UN, which most times I don't really believe in all those, bringing external interference.
No, but El-Rufai was an election observer.
So, because left for me, I feel that if Nigeria has grown to this particular stage, we should be able to, manage our own situation rather than saying we are going to report to UN or to US or to UK.
But those countries also help your electoral process.
We know they fund. So, but the thing is, let's not make it as if by the time anything that happens, we have to go to them. Let's manage our own problem.
So
so those people, those other people outside the gladiators should also be held responsible and made to also sign this document.
I'm even thinking, I think from Asuka, I'm thinking maybe we should stop calling them gladiators, because when we call them gladiators, they act the name, they become fighters.
They are candidates. They are candidates.
When we return, INEC confirms 4,695 smart card readers burnt in Anambra Inferno. Stay with us. Welcome back. Good to know you're still there watching Journalists Hangout. The elections are upon us, and the electoral umpire has assured Nigerians that over 84 million people registered to vote, that all is set for a hitch-free polls. Now, but a string of fire accidents at some offices of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is giving citizens grey hairs. Certainly not like mine. Now, the inferno that got to the INEC office in Awka, Anambra State, is the most worrisome, as electoral materials to be used for the approaching polls were affected. Now, at the last count, the electoral body confirmed that 4,695,000 smart card readers were destroyed by the unfortunate fire. Asuko Emeka, this is in the thousand, almost 5,000. Now we're talking about machines and cards here. And I said, it looks like deja vu, as if it's becoming a culture, a tradition when we move to the polls. Let's start with you. How are you taking this piece of news?
It shows that really something is fishy, but we don't know. We don't know who is actually doing this.
It stinks.
Because I know it happened in Plateau, on Sunday, and then this is happening. It happened
at
yes,
Kwampan,
in
then in
Abia
Abia,
too,
and now Anambra.
So the INEC has to find a way to secure these materials. And coming at a time that everybody is eager to vote, to cast their ballot, to make sure that they go outside and vote, it is very distasteful, honestly, because we wanted an INEC or a situation whereby this exercise will come and everybody will be satisfied, and nobody will carry placards at the end that they've been disenfranchised, and that is what we are trying to avoid. But with this, it is going to, pull back all the, goals and the, marks that have been given to INEC in the past. Because if it happens in Abia, happens in Plateau, is now happening in Anambra, where next is what everybody will be asking.
Yeah, Emeka, there used to be this word, you used to qualify those, they say sensitive materials. So INEC and the police, I think one or both of them should be really about securing such sensitive materials as we go to the elections.
In fact, something I was surprised that about the same time this news, the news broke, that the Civil Defense Corps said they would deploy 68,000 personnel across the nation for the elections. And I said, why do we have this regular, regular deployments, large numbers? It appears in Nigeria, we like to bamboozle the people, we like to intimidate the people. We're going to deploy 200,000 policemen, we're going to deploy 68,000.
Fiscal boots on ground.
And then at the same time, INEC offices are getting bombed. And then I now wonder, where are these 68,000? I mean, are they in the press statements issued by those organizations? Or are they really physical? I mean, are they real personnel? Because the whole thing, like I suppose, it is fishy. The whole thing, it also leaves a bad taste in the mouth. It's suspicious. Anytime we're approaching the elections, you begin to see, some years ago, if you remember, there was this story that a trailer was parked near the INEC headquarters in Abuja, and there were explosives inside. Nothing came out of that. That matter just died, and I think it was 2011.
Because it was not used.
Now again, we are having these materials being destroyed. And I wonder, who is trying to make a fool of whom? Elections should just be a normal procedure. There shouldn't be anything fantastic about elections. In a lot of countries, people vote and go to work. So, but here we shut down we're going to shut down the entire nation on Saturday, and partly on Sunday, because we are holding elections. I think these things do not speak well of us. As we was talking of us managing our affairs. How can we manage our affairs when we cannot secure just INEC offices? We cannot secure materials to be used for elections. It's so bad. I mean, the older generation will tell you, that in years gone by, WAEC would put examination papers in a parcel and just put a seal on it and send it by post. Nothing will happen to it, but try it today. The entire parcel will disappear. I mean, what are we doing to ourselves? Why are we doing this to ourselves? And then you now find out that allegations are flying about that. These things are happening in the strongholds of the opposition. Anambra is a state where the vice presidential candidate of PDP, Peter Obi, comes from. And look at this kind of large-scale destruction happening. Now, when people make such allegations, why won't they be believed? Why should these fires be coming? Is this the Harmattan season? Or are there some...
I think it's still Hamatan.
yeah, but it's strange. It's strange that the Hamatan is hanging around INEC offices.
It looks for sensitive materials and ignites itself.
What you're talking about is 4,000 plus. And I know sometime last year when the debate on the INEC budget was on, INEC actually said that some of the smart card readers they use in the future, in past elections, had become defective. So what it means is that we don't even know whether there will be enough replacements for these bonds.
I think two key issues Emeka has raised here, whether INEC has the muscle to replace these as we go into the elections, which is just three days away. And secondly, why we get to see things happening without anyone being caught or arrested. A case in point, the truck that was found close to the
INEC
headquarters till date, the nation hasn't been told what happened, who kept that truck there, and why explosives were. So looking at security as we move into this election, Asuko, what else would you suggest that the nation, INEC, and maybe the security operatives do to ensure that such don't repeat itself? Because as I said, it looks like a tradition. Anytime we're going into a national election, we always would want to hear stories like this, and perhaps people are getting tired.
Right. If really we really hold the sanctity of democracy in high esteem, and we hold electioneering or elections in high esteem, I think we should be able to do everything humanly possible, materially possible, technologically possible, to ensure that everything is in place. Now, if the INEC offices are very, very important every 4 years or before because I know even after this election, we should be thinking about an Anambra governorship election.
Yeah, in 2021.
Yes, So if it is that important, we shouldn't, jeopardize or play with security of every material that is in INEC office.
No, I think even the Anambra election will even be sometime next year.
Yes, next year.
Sometime next year.
So it means that even as the INEC headquarters is making budgets, they should include maximum security as number one. They should put it as number one, top priority in all their offices across the federation. Because I know that even the state's INEC, the state government will also want to provide security. So INEC itself, from the national headquarters, should also do that. Because this happening means we don't know the number of people. I have not seen any major statement identifying or saying how many people will be affected by this inferno. We just heard that it's about 4,000 plus smart card readers have been burnt. So amount of PVCs have been burnt. But you know that every smart card that comes with loads of people that will be lining up to go and do the accreditation. So if, for instance, you have 10,000 people or more, having maybe like a million or 500 people being that are going to get accredited by this number of people, the number of people that have already gone from either any political party, whether the opposition or the ruling, and that is going to affect numbers. So those are some of the things that people have to look at. So INEC has to find a way. It's either after the election they move these things to their national headquarters or they move it to the central bank, because if the sensitive materials are being domiciled in the central bank whenever it comes from, wherever it is being printed, they can also do the same. Secure it properly. Then so once the elections come, as you are moving the sensitive materials, you move with the card readers, the smart card readers. Because that smart card reader is what will give you accreditation for you to even vote. So the PVC is one. But now the smart card reader, because I'm even particular about the smart card readers, the number of people that will not get accreditation at that period.
Let's see if we can actually close on this matter and move on. Do you think it's high time INEC began getting fireproof safe for such materials?
You see, it's unfortunate that INEC keeps giving its critics enough reasons to say that INEC cannot be trusted to hold impartial elections, to hold credible elections. And this is an avoidable incident. These things, they are distasteful. This is a nation that gained independence in 1960. What are we talking about? Are we a banana republic? This is a nation that is looked up to as a role model by a lot of nations. And fire got in sensitive materials. What are we talking about? Let's get serious. Do we realize that, have we forgotten that that there was a year INEC organized local government elections in this country? Now, the constitution has been amended and that responsibility has been taken away and taken to state, to CX. Now, just to organize federal and state elections, and look at what is going on. You see, we don't even need to tell INEC to put these things in fireproof, bomb-proof, or whatever proof safes. We don't need to tell INEC. The huge budgets that INEC gets for every election ought to be deployed to ensure that these materials are kept in the best place, in the most secure environment. We cannot continue giving the world reasons to laugh at us. Let's grow up. Let's grow up. We should stop these things. It's really, really embarrassing. INEC ought to apologize to Nigerians, offer a strong apology to Nigerians, because this is really embarrassing. It's ridiculous.
And also speak to those who will be voting in those areas so that they know what
exactly. They should tell them,
how
if INEC is going to replace, and if I expect INEC should replace those materials latest overnight. By tomorrow, INEC ought to make a statement saying that those smart card readers have been replaced and everything is under control. And then security beefed up in these areas. What does it take?
But the PVCs that were burnt, what will happen?
Well, I think
the interesting thing is that even the INEC chairman said their temporary voters cards will not be allowed. So that means you're going to
let's hope before we come back again tomorrow, the INEC would have been able to say something to the electorates in those areas now. The still raging controversy surrounding the alleged, if you recall, Russian meddling in the US elections of 2016 has rubbished belief that countries cannot interfere in another's electoral process. Now, there's been a rumor that the US is backing a particular presidential candidate for Saturday's polls in Nigeria. But the American embassy in the country has come up to deny the allegations that it is supporting the People's Democratic Party and its presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar, saying the US remains neutral to all parties. Now, the All Progressives Congress is also accusing the PDP of plotting to create panic that will lead to discrediting the presidential election and a constitutional crisis. Now we ask, are we in for rough roads? Asukwa.
You know what? I think where this whole conspiracy theories is coming from is when Atiku Abubakar actually landed in America. You know, after many years.
Against all odds.
You know, after many years. And he was given, he didn't only go to America and stay in,
didn't go for shopping,
you know, one particular hotel, but he went to Trump's hotel. He was there, you know. So putting that, you know, into consideration,
I'm loving this.
I think that is where the APC is putting one-to-one together to assume that
typical Nigerian fashion.
You understand that now that the US might, in quotes, be backing Atiku Abubakar, you know, in this whole presidency thing. You know, just like, you know, Russia, Russia was accused of backing Trump. The APC as a party, they have every right, you know, to say this, because if the US ambassador, you know, actually came and said, oh, the only word I want to hear is not from, so there are some people outside the president always using Buhari's name, you know, to say this and that. It shows that to them, they believe that these people, they are trying to, you know, play, they are drumming something. Somebody's telling them to drum, you know, let's see the thing, let's see it. You know, there's a way I want to put it so that it will make a lot of sense to people. But if you understand what I'm saying, the APC, to me, still believes that the PDP has foreign backing.
Let me quickly talk to my viewer watching. When I sit with very senior editors like this, what comes to my mind, I try to listen to what's not being said. So if you understand what Asuko is saying, and he goes, if you get me. So I'm listening to what he's not saying. So let me listen to what you're not saying.
What I'm not saying is that, okay, first of all, what I'm saying is, I need to quote former US President Franklin Roosevelt. He said, in human affairs, the public is expected to give in some form of drama. So this is that kind of drama. I mean, elections are part of human affairs. So the public expects some form of drama. And Nigeria is a country that's never in short supply of drama. Week in, week out, there is one drama or the other. So now, I think this allegation is baseless. There's no basis for it because you are the party in power. You are in control of the machinery of state, machinery of security. You have intelligence agencies. You have the DSS, you have the NIA.
So there shouldn't be speculation.
So if you have proof, you should come out with it. It's not Festus Keyamo coming to throw wild allegations all over the place. No. If we want to be taken seriously, we must do things like people with a projection, people who want to be respected on the international stage, so that whenever we appear, people will take us like, a group of people who are serious, not a bunch of jokers. And you saw the way the US Embassy responded and said, that fake news and rumors are in overdrive. So of course, it's fake news, it's just a piece of fake news. Because if you're saying that the US is backing Atiku Abubakar without providing proof, you're a partisan, you're a spokesman for the Presidential Campaign Council of APC, and you're making such an allegation. The police, the IG has not said anything, the DG of the DSS has not said anything, the DG of the NIA has not said anything. Come on, who should take you seriously? You're just a rabble-rouser. For me, there are issues that need to be dealt with. And those are the issues that should occupy the minds of partisans, who are participating in this election. Those are the issues, not trying to build nothing on nothing. People will just laugh, they will say, don't mind him. But every minute counts. In politics, 24 hours is a long time. How are politicians making use of their 24 hours, of their 24 political hours?
That should be the real deal now.
How are they making good use of their 24 political hours, or are they just frittering away opportunities to convince people? Because if you look at US elections, for instance, at the last minute, you see parties trying to reach out to the undecided voters. And that's a large group of people who are undecided. Who am I going to vote for? Or will I just lie on my bed on Saturday and enjoy some good movies and not bother myself? You need to reach out to those people. I've heard a lot of people, I've heard candidates saying they're going on door-to-door campaign, but nobody has come to my door to canvass my vote. I've not seen people in my area, I've not seen people in many places. Oh, well, okay, fine. Has any come to your house? Has any come to your house, to your door, to knock on your door?
I live in the hinterlands. So the hinterlands are usually ignored. When I think what the hinterlands need is just a band and you dance and everybody dance with you. I think you have a very big point talking about security information. The governing party shouldn't be speaking on the realm of speculations. They should be able to come out and say, this is what it is. And looking at what Emeka has said, do you think, if there is at all, that the security agencies should come out and say, this is our findings? And who, if that is, who do you think should address the nation on that?
No, if security agencies have like any thread at all of foreign interference, the IGP is supposed to come out, and if the DSS maybe or the NIA they have anything like that, they should be able to pass such information to the IGP or they set up another, they can all sit down
You
together.
even have the DMI, the Director of Military Intelligence.
Absolutely.
And then they come out and say, okay, from our findings, this and this is what they've been able to, to gather, But yes, this is election period.
Oh my, all kinds
so
of claims.
all kinds of claims will be coming out from left, right, and center. And this is one of it, Whether he has proof or he doesn't, it's left for, just like you're saying, for the IGP and the intelligence agencies to prove. So if eventually it's true, then there's nothing we can do. The elections has to still go on.
No, but if you go to the
nothing
US,
we can do.
look at the US.
Because how will
let's land on this.
because me, I'm looking at it from this. How will the US influence that woman in the market? How will he influence the woman in the market? Because that is what you are saying. Go out and campaign. Don't sit and say that because the US is there are some people that they don't even know where the embassy is. They don't even know who the US is. They don't know who Trump is. They don't know who Theresa May is. The only thing is they wake up in the morning and they are going to their market.
So you're going to say something on this?
Yeah, what I was trying to say is that even in the US, where this allegation, where there was this allegation of Russia meddling, if you look at the way the FBI is investigating, okay, that so-and-so...
It's so thorough.
On the Trump,
it's so thorough.
But the allegation has not been proven. Mm-hmm. They've not got to the point of saying, this was how Russia meddled. It's all been bits and bits and bits, but how, the basic question, how did Russia interfere in the election? Has not been answered. So, it's still going round and round and round and round. Even if they get to the answer, which is that Russia did interfere or Russia didn't interfere, the nation is not being held hostage. And then to the other part of the question, the other part of the topic, which is the federal government accusing the opposition of trying to unleash anarchy. It makes me laugh. For crying out loud, you are controlling the apparatus, the security apparatus. How can you now say the opposition wants to unleash anarchy? How? Where? In what way? There is a responsibility on the sitting government to ensure credible, free and fair elections. Already, INEC offices have been burnt.
Because I think before we leave here, I think I'm still a little bit disturbed. Now you're talking about the security operatives, and off the top of my head, Ogun State still pops up. And I'm saying...
Those are random incidents.
Hold on. By now, we should have heard whether anyone got any kind of security report that was going to happen, because we knew what went down before
it was
we saw what happened.
It was clear it was going to happen.
Mm-hmm. So it was clear. So because it comes back to the security people. So what did the security do to avert it?
Yeah, let the commissioner of... Well, the commissioner of police will tell you he has just been redeployed. I don't even know if he has resumed.
What did the DSS do?
Because if you
the
look at it,
president was coming there, so what did the
APC
DMI
and APM
and the
clashed?
NIA, what did they do?
Supporters of APC and APM clashed some days before that campaign. And if you look at what has been going on in the APC, in Ogun and Imo, it was not unexpected. It was not unexpected, honestly.
But I think the presidential security team, the campaign team should have known. They should have gone ahead to know if there's no harm in, if they don't campaign there, nothing will happen.
Absolutely.
So you understand? The people will still vote for the president if they want to vote. So if there was a security breach, there's no point going to Ogun State.
Well, it's a fine place for me to say many thanks, gentlemen, for being such nice company. Emeka Madunagu and Asukwa James. Well, that's it on Journalist Hangout. Join me tomorrow for another episode of the program. Catch the repeat broadcast. You can also watch Journalist Hangout on other platforms showing on the screen. And on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. And Sulaiman Alede. God bless Nigeria.